Okay, so if you guys like shuffle over to the end here, hopefully you might be able to see me. I will just come up a tiny little bit on here. All right, so we are looking and talking about hamstrings this week. And yesterday we went through the anatomy of the hamstrings. Today we are looking at what you can do to stretch your hamstrings when you're lying down. So I shall use my glasses. So tight hamstrings. If you're looking at your hamstring muscle and you're looking at where you think your muscle should be, and we're talking about it's coming from the tail end to below the knee, we talked that we need a bit of activity and a bit of mobility around the pelvis, so that's part one. Then we obviously need a bit of activity and mobility around the hamstrings themselves. Now, if you're finding that your muscle's quite tight, you might want to start by doing a little bit of release. So I'm using a small ball here. A lot of you might be familiar with rolling and things like that, but I'm just using a small ball under my hamstring muscle. So it's just sitting in front of my tail and it's sitting under my leg. And to get a bit of activity, I'm just going to stretch and lower the leg. Okay. In that position here, I'm getting some pressure into the trigger points of the muscles, and I'm getting some activity in the hamstring as I move it. Okay. I might want to move my leg side to side, so turn my leg basically in and out instead of moving it up and down. And then I can move the ball further down, so it's into like the muscle belly. Now, that's something that's quite easy for you to do if you're sat in the office. So if you're sat in the office and not doing a lot, that would be something that might help you. Okay. The second thing that you might find that you like doing is actually just moving around and finding where that spot is. So just finding out where the tightness is in that muscle and breathing through it, and then we move it up and along. Okay. Now I've got quite a small ball here, so it's a small little lacrosse ball. Bigger ball is just going to dissipate the area that I'm in a little bit more, so I might want to roll and move it across all of the muscle fibers and have a feel where that is. And then I might go a bigger ball again if I want something that's a little bit more displaced. Obviously that one's quite big. Okay. The nippier ones are going to be the small ones because they're going to bite into and press into the trigger points of the muscle. You want to sort of stay in the muscle belly, and then we also want to be aware that the hamstrings are obviously those three different areas of muscle. So you've got your biceps femoris on the outside that has a long head and a short head, and you've got your semimembranosus and semitendinosus tendon, which is at the back here. Now also remember that your outside areas of the muscle here are going to invade or attach into your ITB, and you have the medial borders of here that are going to attach into your adductor muscle. So we're not just talking hamstrings, we're talking how your hamstrings then also coordinate with your other muscles around the leg. Okay, so if I get rid of the balls, I am just going to demo here. I'll just be using my jacket because I left my head support somewhere else. Just going to use a stretchy band. Now you don't have to have a stretchy band. You can use a belt, you can use a towel, you can use whatever you like. Okay, I would keep one leg supported. So when you're moving, I would keep one leg where it's here, and then you're going to place your hamstring leg that you're going to stretch in. Now, if you struggle with your back, I would keep this leg still and keep it supported. And we're just going to have that leg out straight and get rid of the ball. The hamstring in this position, as the leg comes up towards the ceiling here, you're stretching through the back of the hamstring. Okay? Now you might feel it stretch here. And if you do, that's enough for you. Okay? What you can do is then flex the toe to get a bigger stretch. As your hamstring gets easier, you're taking your leg up higher. Okay, Okay, now what we need to be aware of in this position is that we're not curling and lifting the tail off the bed, because then I'm just bringing all my other muscles into play. So what I want to do is make sure that my pelvis is still, my tailbone is heavy and my pubic bone is heavy, and I've got a straight back, not a curly back. So you want to avoid pushing on this leg, because as soon as you push on this leg, you'll get the curl. Okay. Now, if you don't have a sore back, you can extend that leg away, and that leg then is going to keep you grounded. So that leg is going to keep you supported, and you're going to lift with this leg, and then we're going to control it down. Okay. So if your back's sore, use a bent leg. Just be wary, you're more prone to curling. If your back is good, you can have a straight leg, and that's going to keep your pelvis still for you. Okay. Now, you can turn the leg in. So if I bring my leg down so you can see my foot, I can turn the leg in and bias the muscles on the inside, and I can turn the leg out, my foot out, to bias the muscles on the outside. So if I have my foot square, it's going to be straight hamstring. If I turn my toe in, I'm going to rotate my whole thigh, and if I turn my toe out, I'm going to rotate and get the lateral muscles. So when you're doing your hamstring stretch, you want to bias it accordingly. So I would always do a straight leg, I would do it with the toe turned in, and I would do it with the toe turned out. Okay? To get a different kind of stretch on your leg, you can do what we call a working stretch. So you're going to bring the leg in, you're going to flex your foot towards the ceiling, and we're going to stretch up. So what's happening here is, as I'm moving, I'm stretching the leg up. I'm just going to move this camera a little bit so you can maybe see a little bit more. Wouldn't be any better for you? Probably not. Right. The leg comes in, flex the foot, and we're reaching up to the ceiling. And you can still do that with that leg grounded. So the leg comes in, and we stretch it up towards the ceiling. So you're going to feel the muscle stretch here. To get a bigger stretch, you might want to flex your toe. So I'm flexing my toe towards me. So if I bring my leg down as if I've got tight hamstrings, I can use this to pull. So again, if I want to use this a little bit more to help me, I can have it more around the toe. Okay, then I'm lifting up, and I can relax the toe, flex the toe. So if I come into range, relax the toe, I get more of a stretch. Relax the toe, pull the toe, I get more of a stretch. I can have my toe turned in and do the same, or turned out rather, and I can have my foot turned in and do exactly the same. Okay, so I'm bending the leg in, and I'm stretching it up. So your first one is just relatively passive, but a little bit of active. Your second one, pushing in and reaching, is what we call an eccentric stretch. We're working the muscle as we stretch it. So we're strengthening the muscle as we move it. And same again, you can alter how your foot works. So you can alter to have your foot square, turned in and turned out. Okay? Those ones here, haven't got a stretch, you can always just use your arms. So you can have your arm here to hold you. Okay? And again, you can just, if I lower the leg down, just flex and point the toe to get more range. One of the other things that we probably ought to also think about when we're doing our hamstring stretches is what we just talked about earlier, is that they come on the outside and they attach to your ITB. So it might be worth taking them over into an ITB stretch. So instead of just doing your hamstring, you come across into an ITB stretch. Now that's going to be a bit burny down the outside of the leg because you have your sciatic nerve here, but you also have that nerve coming into your common perineal nerve at the back of the knee, and that can be a little bit bitey. So just be aware in that stretch as we move across, we're getting a bit of glutes, we're getting a bit of ITB pull, but we're also getting a bit of that nerve being stretched. So just be respectful of your nerve. If you need to, you can just wriggle the knee about. The second way that I would stretch is to come into an inner thigh stretch. So you come back to your hamstring and you bend the leg to take that leg away. So you get the inner thigh stretch as well. And then I would take it across the leg so we get a glute stretch, and you can use your arms to pull into a glute stretch. Okay. Change legs, just place the other leg in, and we have hamstrings on that leg. Again, turn out, turn in, flex and point. Leg comes across the body to do the ITB, and the outside into the Bernie come perineal stretch. The leg comes up, so we come out into your inner thigh stretch, so you're taking in the adductors, and then we cross the leg over to come into your glute stretch. So those are all muscles that we can use for your hamstrings, and they will also give you a little bit more range into your hip. So when you're thinking about doing your hamstring stretches, you want to be aware, A, of the position that you're doing them in, but B, that you maintain your back in a good position. So if you're finding that you're tight in your lower back, you want to make sure that as you're doing your stretch, you're not bringing your lower back into it, so you've got some support. Or if you're maintaining the leg out straight, so your leg that you're not stretching is out straight, that's going to hold your pelvis in a better position so you don't cheat. So if you're new to hamstring stretches and you want to make sure that you're doing them well, they would be good basic stretches for you to start with. Start with some nice easy ones. Use a strap around the leg just to help you into a stretch. Change the zone that you're stretching in. So instead of just having the hamstring there, we turn it in slightly through the whole leg, turn it out slightly through the whole leg, and then we bend and we reach that leg up to the ceiling to get that elongation stretch. There are different techniques that we can also utilize, which are called like a PNF, so proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation is the full name for it. And it's just some basic stuff like hold, relax. So, you know, typically if you've been in a sports team and they've had you here and you're pushing against the leg, or you've got a teammate holding the leg, you press down into the hand, you relax it, and then you can pull a little bit further. You press into the hand, hold for 10 seconds, and then you can stretch a little further. If you are doing those techniques, so you are doing something like your hold, relax technique or contract, relax technique, I would just make sure that you're in control of how much you then stretch. I would be wary of having somebody then push you into a stretch, or if you are going to get somebody to assist you, that you are in control and you say, hang on, that's enough. You don't want them really pushing you into an overstretch where you might damage tissue. So for stretches, just think that what we're looking at is the actual length of the tissues and how much they can stretch. So you want to be holding them maybe 20 to 30 seconds in a single stretch, and you only really need to do about 3 or 4 repetitions of that stretch. You don't need to be stretching them for 10 times or anything like that. Basically, the way that the tensile tissue, or the actual way that the tissues move, is they have what we call a creep effect. They will move to a certain length, and then that's it. So if you've done 3 or 4 stretches, that's maybe about as much as you're going to get out of that tissue in that stretch time. For you to then increase your stretch, you want to be going a little bit further. So say your line of stretch is here to here, and you want to get down to your toes. So at the moment you can reach to your knees. If you do your stretches, you might be able to reach a little bit further. Now, if you don't do any stretches again for 2 or 3 days, you're going to be back at your knees again. And then you stretch and you get halfway down your shin, and then you don't do anything for 2 or 3 days and you're going to be back here. Okay? To increase your flexibility, you need to maintain what you're doing. So you want to stretch and reach your mid-shin. Tomorrow, you're going to come back a little bit. So when you stretch, you're going to get a little bit further, and then you can come back a little bit. And then you do the next day and you get a little bit further. So over time, you're incrementally increasing your range. Now that will only happen if you're stretching regularly, okay? If you decide I'm doing my stretches on Monday and I'm doing nothing till Wednesday, you're just going to be doing this. You're going to be getting a bit more flexible, and then you're going to lose it. And you're not going to increase your range. To increase your range, you need to be doing it more regularly so that the tissues don't have the chance to come back to their start position. They're always coming back, but in a longer position. Okay, so hopefully that's explained a little bit about hamstrings. how to stretch them on the most basic level. So how to stretch them with ease, lying down, using a bit of resistance, using a strap, taking into account that there's 3 different movements. You're in your straight leg, your turned out leg, and your turned in leg. And you can also do it where you're working into an eccentric stretch, so a working stretch, which is when we're reaching to the ceiling. You can do a hold relax stretch where you're working and then you relax and you can stretch a little bit more. And they're the most effective ways for you to stretch for now. Tomorrow in the sort of masterclass for tomorrow, we will go through some other positions. So we'll go through some seated positions for stretches and some standing positions for your stretches. And then on Friday we'll wrap up. And if you have any questions or anything that you would like us to cover and change before then please feel free to drop me a line. Otherwise, thank you for joining me today, and I should hopefully be back here. Apologies for being a little bit late on the scene today. I had a couple of clients that came in, but we should be back on track for 1 o'clock tomorrow.